Stacey Abrams, the most famous current voting reform activist in the world, snubbed the president and vice president in her state, Georgia, where she's running for governor. They came to the state to talk about what? Voting rights in America. And according to the White House and the Abrams camp, there was a scheduling conflict, but I have the inside. So let me break down what actually happened. So let me give you first the grand entrance of the president and vice president in the state of Georgia, where a voter restriction bill, Senate Bill 202, has now been passed into law. Well, that bill restricts access to voting in various ways. Joined by Vice President Kamala Harris, President Biden on the campus of Morehouse College and technically Clark Atlanta University, also called on Congress to pass election legislation and a passionate speech about protecting voting rights. So let me say this. His words literally have always been right. He said the right thing during the campaign. He has said and maintained the right verbiage during his presidency, and he continues to say the right thing as it relates to voting rights in the United States of America. Once again, he came to Georgia, he said the right thing again. That's not new. Today, according to the president, I'm making it clear, protect our democracy. I support changing our Senate rules, whichever way they need to be changed, to prevent a minority of senators from blocking action on human rights. We told you that on day one, Joe. We said this on day one. Get rid of it, eliminate it. The filibuster has to go. So now you see this movement of, yes, we're willing to do it for voting rights. They've done it for other things. They've done it for individuals that they wanted to get into particular positions. They've done it for cabinet members. They've done it for members of the US Supreme Court. They have done this before. It's called the nuclear option. It is time to go nuclear for the American people. That's what we've been saying since day one. It gets deeper. During this, there were protesters, not protesters from the right, they were there, but protesters from the left. You had progressive protesters at the Biden-Harris voter rally event and voter engagement and voter reform event. They were there. They were strong and they were loud. Who was not there? Remember, Stacey Abrams, gubernatorial candidate for Georgia, the likely front runner. She was not there. And according to them, once again, it was just a scheduling conflict. Come on. Okay, a coalition of voting rights groups in Georgia announced Monday that they will not attend events surrounding President Joe Biden's expected visit to Atlanta, urging for concrete action instead of what they called a photo op. Now you're cooking. Until that package is signed, sealed, and delivered, keep protesting. Keep being the push and pull necessary to make these elected leaders be all they can be. That's the idea. You are still being told the same message as day one. Until policy changes, there is no letting up on the protest. I agree. Now, I did some digging here, and I found the direct connection between gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams and members of the protest. Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter and representatives of several voting rights groups, urged Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to remain in Washington. They said, don't come to Atlanta. They said, don't come to Georgia. If you don't have a clear plan to advance voting rights legislation, that is how policy is done. A clear, precise plan. Some of the groups that urge Biden to skip his Atlanta trip are the Asian American Advocacy Fund, Galileo Impact Fund Incorporated, and the New Georgia Project Action Fund. Wait a minute, that organization may sound familiar to you, the New Georgia Project Action Fund. Well, guess who started the New Georgia Project? Who's the founder of the New Georgia Project? Stacey Abrams. Literally, her own nonprofit organization was at odds with the visit of Joe Biden. It gets deeper. We don't need even more photo ops. We need action. And that action is in the form of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as the Freedom to Vote Act. And we need that action immediately, according to Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Votes Matter. One of the organizations, as I have pointed out, Stacey Abrams founded, but there's a caveat to this. One of the organizations at the forefront of the elections battle is the New Georgia Project. Was founded by Stacey Abrams. The New Georgia Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It educates and registers roughly 700,000 eligible but unregistered African American, Latino, and Asian American voters, registering more than 250,000 new Georgia voters since 2015. That number has actually increased. I got that data from the newgeorgiaproject.org website. On their website, it also lists their New Georgia Project Action Fund, which is the direct agency in opposition with Biden and Harris on their lack of delivery as it relates to voting rights legislation. The NGP Action Fund, which is a 501c4, this is on the same website, engages in local and state political campaigns for the purposes of supporting or opposing ballot measures, referendums, recalls, initiatives, and candidates for local, state, and federal offices. NGP Action Fund makes specific endorsements from school board to governor and gets voters to the polls. That is the agency, ladies and gentlemen, who is a leading voting rights agency in the United States of America, founded by Stacey Abrams, was in opposition to the visit of Biden and Harris to Atlanta, Georgia, until they actually have a clear plan and not a clear speech only. My dear brother, what are your thoughts on this?
Good to see you, Doc. Thank you for having me on again.
Good to see you.
This is big because it's finally people standing up against the Biden administration, really taking their sweet time as though everything is hunky-dory in the country. I don't quite understand it. And even in this speech, I'll even take issue that it was super clear, because Biden, a man of the Senate for so long, just refuses even to say the words, get rid of the filibuster on this issue. He says, and I support strongly and fully doing it in whatever way they have to do. I don't even want to say the words. His quote is in whatever way they have to do. Yeah, how about saying his plan is so lacking of detail, he can't even say the words in a speech that doesn't even have a plan behind it. So you understand it. While I still think it moves the needle of the conversation to have the president and vice president come and speak on the issue. I think it's also helps move the needle to have these organizations boycott the event and say, come on, step it up.
Yeah, I'm actually in agreement with both. I understand the necessity of the push and pull in politics. Definitely there were many what we would call giants at that event in the civil rights movement, others that are political movers and shakers. That's great, but you cannot dismiss your activist class, because at the end of the day, if the Democrats do not have their street team, they will not win not only local elections, they will not win national elections in this country. So you got to make sure they stay engaged and empowered. All right.
100%. And also they just have dragged they've taken their sweet time. It's been a year to only talk now about voting rights and take it as a more serious issue when attacks on our democracy are happening from day one of this administration and before. To wait 11 months before you're going in and saying we have to reverse these laws, what is it, 39 laws in 23 states or so, or 15 states. a huge amount of laws trying to roll back and rolling back voting access in this country. This is a very pressing major issue. I was so surprised to see the article in The Hill saying that they were stunned that the Biden-Harris administration even came to Georgia and gave this speech because it's not what the country is focused on. Well, the country has real issues of focus right now because we are distracted by a million ways and a bunch of these straw men that keep getting put up by the right and that manipulate the air in the room. We need to make sure we still have a democracy, and that should be obvious to any administration that cares about the voice of the people.
Very well said. And here's the reality, my brother, you know this. If the Biden-Harris ticket, if they would have already delivered voting rights legislation, if they would have already delivered some of these major and massive policies that we have promoted and voted them in to actually implement, Stacey Abrams would have been on that stage with them.